All right, everybody. We are about to launch our fifth episode. Can you believe it, Liam? We're already deep in our fifth episode. And
Yeah.
this week is about helping people prepare for the future financially, right?
Right.
I was just looking at a study. About 64% of Americans only have $400 at the end of the month in their bank account. And that is scary, right? 64% of Americans only have $400 in their savings account at the end of the month, which an average median household has about $5,300, which is pretty scary, right? When you think about the cost of living today, the inflation that's been ongoing, we're about 3.2 in inflation today. The Fed has not decided whether they want to reduce rates or not. They've been stagnant. All of 2022, 2023, they increased rates steadily. Hence, you see mortgage rates at an all-time high right now. And so they've been steadfast in keeping the rates where they are. So what we're hoping to see is a reduction in rates as we get closer. But before we can't control that. What we can't control, though, if you're working for a company, your 401k contributions, your IRA contributions, and various platforms you can leverage. So that's what the episode is about today. And I know, Liam, you've got some questions you want to get started with. So I'll flip it over to you, sir. And for those of you listening to us live, make sure you share the live. Keep your questions to the end. Hopefully, Liam asks some questions that are similar to yours. Happy Tuesday, my friend. It is Taco Tuesday.
For recording anyway. Although people will be watching this on a Monday, so it'll be like, what are we in the future?
Yeah.
It's interesting to sort of preface an episode like this by noting the really severe economic decline in the US, which a lot of people are still in denial about or become reliant upon credit, so they try to just tune it out. And certainly our political class doesn't pay much attention to how much it's fallen. A lot of us are one lost job away from homeless because there's no way to put things aside. We don't make enough money.
Right.
I like to remind people who are talking about the whole minimum wage laws, like, oh, it's supposed to be for kids' work or whatever. But, when minimum wage laws were created, it was supposed to be a living wage. It was described as a living wage at the time, and it's steadily fallen. They're like those little teenage minimum wage jobs in 1965, if you adjust for inflation, were $12.50 an hour. And the cost of living was far lower then because people didn't have to pay for this,
Right.
And internet
he's holding up an iPhone, by the way, if you all didn't know.
Healthcare costs were much lower because it was still literally illegal to do healthcare at a profit in 1965. I mean, so many things are different, and the actual wage was higher for a lot of Americans. So it's interesting to think about what we can do about that, because on the one hand, and I focus a lot more on this side of it, there are the systemic problems, the things that we need to organize in order to change, because it's going to keep getting worse, but on the other hand, there's always the, what can you do about it now? How can you survive? How can you take care of your family? Absolutely. And that's where you've got a lot of good things to share on this. So for those of us who struggle to have any free money at the end of the month, what can you do if you've just got a few bucks here and there? And there are a few things we can do investment wise. So that's what we're diving into today.
And I think it's important to give people a little bit about my background, because you're like, okay, he's running a live on 401k contributions. He's talking about IRA, traditional IRA versus a Roth. He's going to chart out some things for us. Who is this guy? And to credentialize myself, for those of you that don't know, I spent 30 years in the banking industry. Back in '94 when I started as a teller and moved up through the ranks into mid to senior leadership, and then spent time in the mortgage business as well for a couple of years prior to leaving in the April of this year. Also have a degree in business, a graduate degree in business. And so I spent a lot of times, a great deal of my career in the banking industry, understanding the importance of investing in a 401k, the importance of having a financial advisor to guide you, the importance of understanding the benefits of a 401k. And I'll share a little bit of personal story along those lines in this episode. So hang in there if you want to hear about how a 401k can help you buy a home, for those of you that are looking to buy your home for the first time, and what some of your 401k benefits are if you're not familiar with them. So we'll talk about that today. So again, 30 years in the banking industry, from a teller to a banker, branch manager, mid to senior leadership, mortgage manager, and on various committees and boards within the community, within the financial institution, to help provide continued education for our constituents in the banking industry, which is our employees, and then the community, which is our community. And so looking forward to having this discussion with all of you today. And then I'm going to give you some resources also. I think, Liam, will be important for folks to go and do their own research, right? Mm-hmm. Now, here's the caveat that I would add. I am not a licensed financial advisor, so I don't have a Series 6, Series 7, or any of those. I'm sharing I'm going to share personal experiences, what I've learned over the years, how to navigate the banking system. So if you, what I would say to you is it's so important for you to have a financial advisor to guide you through this process. And we'll talk about money managers too, and how important they are to the overall success. All right.
Right. You need a financial advisor when you're looking at what the actual investments are, what specifically you should do. What we're going to do is a bit more informational. What are these things? What are the things out there that you can talk about with your financial advisor and plan for yourself? And I think one good place to start with that is, because this term gets thrown around a lot. What the heck is a 401k, and does it have to come through an employer to be anything at all? Like what are they?
Let's start with so 401k, typically a company will offer a 401k and match dollar for dollar up to a certain percentage point. Now, self-employed individuals can have a different type of investment account, which we call a SEP, right? And this SEP, and I'll pull up the acronym for a SEP. A SEP, SEP.
SEP. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll give you guys what the acronym stands for, so you have it. So a SEP is for a self-employed individual, and a self-employed individual can contribute to an IRA with a certain amount. So we won't talk about what self-employed individuals can do unless someone has questions at the end. But what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about 401k. So a 401k is basically your retirement account within a company. Now, a lot of companies don't offer pension plans, so we won't dive into that. So a 401k is basically a retirement account that takes a pool of money and invests it based on your allocation. And that's why I think it's important to seek a financial advisor's advice, because with a 401k, you can actually go to a financial advisor, Liam, and say, hey, take a look at my 401k that I have with our institution. Where would you recommend I distribute the money, right? Up to 100% of whatever you allocate to your 401k. And so as you're contributing biweekly per paycheck, let's just say you contribute $25, the company will match dollar for dollar up to 6% of the total contribution. So that's in a nutshell what a 401k is. It is a pool of money that you invest in where the company matches, and it's diversified in various products, whether it's mutual funds. If you choose equities, and equities is another name for stocks, you can do that. You could tie them to bonds. So a variety of different funds that you can have in your 401k to help you maximize your earnings over a long period of time.
All righty. In terms of distributing them, I don't know how common this is, but for most of my working life, I've had no access to a 401k. None was ever offered. There was one short exception to that for just a few years. And in that one, they gave you a choice between low risk, medium risk, or high risk, and then they chose everything else to do with it.
Right.
So it's nice that some of these do give you the freedom to actually go into your own financial advisor and determine where things are going to go.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't do that one the only time I had one of these.
Now, so the beauty of this, so if you never had a 401k, the other option, Liam, for those that don't have an employer or not self-employed and want to contribute, you can contribute to an individual retirement account and buy stocks through that individual retirement account. That's another way to invest on your own, and you can do a minimum monthly contribution. A perfect example is my 18-year-old, right? 19-year-old, about a year or so ago, when she turned 18, she wanted to start contributing to an IRA. And so we went online to one of the bank sites, opened up an IRA for her with a minimum of $1,000. And every month from her paycheck, she goes in and has an auto deduction into that IRA. So you can contribute to an IRA on your own. In addition to that, I'm sure you all heard about Robinhood, the investment platform, right? That's another way you can buy equities or stocks on your own with a certain cost. what people don't know also is most banking institutions, whether it's Wells Fargo, Chase, B of A, have their own trading platform. So you can sign on into a Wells Fargo trading platform and you get a certain amount of trades at no cost to you. So you could take a pool, let's say you take $10,000 and you can take that money and then buy certain stocks with it based on research you've done. So I highly encourage everyone to make sure that I highly encourage everyone to make sure they're doing their research on the stock that they buy before they invest in it, right? That you have to do your due diligence. You can't just buy things off the cuff. And so keep that in mind when you don't have a 401k, you're not self-employed. Well, how do I invest? You got your traditional IRA or Roth IRA, and I'll talk about the difference. Mm-hmm. The contributions to an IRA, and there are maximums to those. Those you can tell your CPA at the end of the year what you contributed, and they're potentially a write-off depending on your tax bracket and how much you've contributed. So keep that in mind as you go through that process. So for those of you listening, again, IRA and traditional IRA and Roth IRA, and again, I'll talk about the difference of those here in a little bit. And some misconceptions about
contributions also affect taxes
a little differently, and I'll share why in a bit. Cool.
Because I don't recall ever putting that through, but I only have a Roth.
Yeah, it's a good time to segue into that. So I think an IRA, if you think individual retirement account or even a 401k, those are pre-tax contributions, right? Those are pre-tax. They're not taxed. But when you're ready to retire at 70 and a half, let's just say you're ready to retire, and you're going to take distributions from your 401k. At 70 and a half is when you're required to take the minimum distributions from your 401k. Since the contributions in that 401k are pre-tax dollars, now you're going to get taxed on that distribution. Now, here's the thing that people don't recognize. When you and I are 70 and a half, our income is going to be different. And so the way we get taxed on that distribution is going to be different because it might be a lower income bracket. Right now, let's just say we're at 60 and we want to take a distribution. We might be in a higher income bracket. Now you're going to ask me, why are we saying 60 versus like 59? I'll tell you why in a moment. So our tax bracket may be at, hypothetically speaking, at 30% before we turn 70, because now our income is not as much. I'm hoping to be retired, be way before 70. So we're not having to pay the excessive tax, and it'll depend on the tax law. Now I say 60 because at 59 and a half, if you decide to take a distribution from your 401k before 59 and a half, there's a 10% penalty that you have to pay Uncle Sam, right? 10% penalty. That's why I say 59 and a half. When you're over 59 and a half and you're before the required minimum distribution of 70, you don't pay the 10%, but you do pay the federal and state tax penalties, and that'll depend on your state. So for those of you listening to this, you need to figure out what your state taxes are, and then you can pull up your federal taxes as well. And I want to give everyone a resource since we're talking about this. So for those of you thinking, I need some money I need to figure out how much money I need from my 401k, what sort of taxes I need to pay. And I always love our friend Google. And I'm going to give you this resource. Y'all could pull it up, those of you listening. So you can just type in, if you're listening, minimum IRA distribution calculator, and it'll walk you through the taxes that you have to pay, how much depending on the amount you withdraw. And so I'll pause there, Liam. I think that was quite a bit in terms of, describing an IRA versus a Roth IRA.
Yeah. So
a Roth IRA is post-tax. So now that's the difference.
Okay. What does that mean then exactly?
That's a good question. So we contribute to an IRA, right, pre-tax. That's untaxed money, right?
Okay.
So that's why we pay the taxes when we're ready to take distribution. On a Roth IRA, our gross income has been taxed. So now we're contributing on everything that has been taxed already. Hence, you don't have to pay the tax penalty when you're ready to get a distribution from the Roth.
Unless you withdraw early. Yeah.
If you withdraw early at 59 and a half, then you pay the tax penalty on 59.5, but you don't withdraw once you're 60. You don't pay the taxes that you would pay normally on a traditional, right?
Yeah, I had to withdraw a good bit from it many years ago because of a financial issue, and there was some significant hits from that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Maybe the right age, but yeah, the fact that it's already taxed means you're kind of like locking away, and you don't have to deal with it later. Theoretically.
Correct.
Which is
again, this is for
when you're older. I mean, you're already on a fixed income. You don't want to pay anything extra that you don't have to.
You got it. And so I think people don't recognize the difference, and oftentimes don't engage in contributions, whether it's a 401k, an IRA, or a Roth IRA. And so what we'll get to in this episode is also, well, how do I strategically, manage contributing to an IRA, right? How do I create an emergency fund? How do I budget effectively? And so I think those will be important topics to discuss as well, because people really think that, well, even if I contribute $25, it's money I'm going to lose. At the end of the day, $25, and I'm using the most minimum amount. Think about what you spend $25 on in a month, right? $25 a month. That's less than $1 a day. And I heard this quote back in 2003. I was driving down the freeway. What's interesting about people is they will spend, and I recognize there's some shoes that appreciate and others that don't. You'll pay $100 to $200 on a pair of shoes that will depreciate, yet you won't buy a stock for $10 that has the potential to appreciate, right? And so we're in this mindset of I want instant gratification versus long-term satisfaction.
Yeah, it's tough because we didn't really evolve to think long term, and the money that you're putting aside there, you don't see it, you don't directly benefit from it. It's just sitting there, and there's a potential payoff, way down the road. It's a lot harder for us to think that way. You got to put a little bit of effort into it, but put it right in front of your face. Oh yeah, I want that.
It's that instant gratification that we want. Yeah.
It's getting past that is a real trick.
Right. So what else comes to mind, Liam? So as you're thinking about this for you in our audience, what questions might come up that you think are helpful? And then we can get
one really basic one that I'm not sure if it'll frame something well for you heading into this, but the size of contributions. So $25 a month doesn't seem that much, but it can still be difficult for some people to do, to afford even that. Granted, again, there are a lot of Americans that don't even have access to bank accounts. They're stuck using the little prepaid type cards and whatnot, or going into those horrifying cash checking places because they just don't have enough assets to really qualify and hold these accounts in the first place. Right. So for a lot of people, 25 will still seem stiff, but for some you can. But then even when you can't afford $25 a month to sock away into an IRA, it's tempting to think, what the hell difference does that make? It's so tiny. It's only 12 months out of the year, $25 a piece. What do you get at the end of this? One nice dinner somewhere. You have to understand how it's going to appreciate. And that has a lot more to do with what it goes into and what you're invested in.
Absolutely. So I think
it's much.
It does not seem in the short run, it does not seem like it's much, right? And I think people don't. We talked earlier about being short-sighted versus having long-term vision. And so let me share a chart with everybody because $25 doesn't seem like a lot. And I'm like, well, how does it we got to look at the compounding effect, right? We have to look at the compounding effect. So let's take a look at the compounding effects over years. And so what I'm sharing with everyone here is someone who starts contributing at the age of 25, right? We said $25, but we're going to say this particular person, and those of you that when I mention this amount, don't freak out about the amount. Everybody's financial situation changes over time. It does. But at the age of 25, if hypothetically this person invests $5,000 annually between at the age of 25, right? Between 25 to 30, And by the time they're 60, right, and they continue to do the same. So let's just say Susan invests $5,000 annually between the ages of 25 to 35. In total, she invests $50,000. We have to look at the compounding effect of that amount, right? And say this is starting at 25. So if she continues to do the same exact investments over time, right, the total growth at that point is almost $1.2 million, right? 5,000 annually based on.
And that was over how many years?
That's from 25 till about 65. That's a 5,000 a year. That's a very small amount, right? You could do the math on, how much per month.
Still what, like
$500 per month?
400 something
it's $500
a month.
Yeah. So assuming you could do 500, but again, I'm just giving you an example on compounding, the compounding effect. Now, let's say you started, instead of 25, you started at 35. Liam, what do you think would happen if you started at 35 instead of 25 and doing the same type of investment? What would your final number be at the age of 65? What do you think that would be?
I'm not terribly quick with that kind of arithmetic, but you're taking 10 years off of what you'd assume before was 40 years.
Yeah.
So I'd say like it's a 1 quarter off from that, right?
Yeah. So, and remember, we also
1 million then.
Yeah. So a little less. Remember, compounding effect, fluctuation in market. It would be half of what you would have at the end of 65, $600,000. If you start, I'm sorry. Yeah, significant decline because that's 10 years, right? So you could take 10 years, right? So say 5,000 a year times 10 years. That's significant amount of money, right? Y'all can do the math on that. What's 10 times 5,000? That's 150,000, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Do the quick math on that. So those of you can check me, right? 5,050 or what's 5,000 times 10 years, Liam? Real quick. I'm not good at the mind math.
Then that 50 or
I'm going to do it real quick. That's 50,000. Sorry, I said 150. That's $50,000, right? Thank you, Anna. $50,000 that you did not get compounding effects on, right? Remember, I said when you're contributing, depending on where your money is in the portfolio, will determine the compounding effect. I'm going to give you a personal story here, Liam. And for those of you listening, I'll share this with you. So I started when I started in banking at the age of 22, 94, I believe. I was just about to turn 23. 2 years later, I started contributing to my 401k. And so by the time I was 35, right? By the time I was 35, we bought our house. And I was able to take money from that 401k and to use as a down payment. I had enough to use as a down payment back in 07, right? And so, which most people don't think about, well, how much were you contributing, JBS? I wasn't contributing $5,000 a month, by the way. I wasn't making a lot of money. When I started in banking, it was $7.25 an hour. That's how much I was making. And I was working 4 days a week, going to school full time. And by the time I turned 35, I was just promoted to a mid to senior job. I wasn't making that much prior to that, right? The jump in financial earnings is really big when you go from a frontline manager to mid to senior. But I wasn't contributing that much. If I were to tell you how much I was contributing, I would tell you about 5% per paycheck, which is nothing, folks. But I had enough to pull out for a 401k, right? Had I been contributing the max at the time, I think my 401k situation would have looked completely different. But I learned from that, and I realized a couple things. One, I've got to increase my contributions. I'm getting free money. The bank's giving me up to 6%. Why wouldn't I want free money? Dollar for dollar, up to 6%. Who doesn't want free money? If you're in a chat and you don't want free money, just put, I don't want free money, right? Who doesn't want free money? So I started increasing my contributions. And, I'm almost 53 now, and that financial picture looks completely different, right? Looks completely different. And so when my wife and I are ready to retire, obviously, I contribute. I have a 401k that's still with the previous institution, but I also have an individual retirement account, right, where I have money managers managing that for me. And that in that particular account, that IRA, that individual retirement account, was rolled over from the prior employer. And I'm just going to give you guys this. This doesn't happen all the time, but so when I put that down payment on the home, Liam, I was left with about, I want to say, $80K. This was 2007, right? 2007. And so over the years, I did some research, bought some stocks, right? Whether it was Facebook when it first came out, Google, Apple, Amazon, all these different stocks. And then finally, I had enough to give my money to a money manager. And now they manage that retirement account, and they buy about 90 stocks on average for me. And they manage it at a certain fee. So they charge me a fee to manage my money. But the return on there has been amazing, right? And so we'll talk about money managers and how that works in the grand scheme of things. But the reason I share that story with you is because don't minimize your amount of contributions. So if you could only contribute $25 a day or a month right now, by the time you're at a certain point in your life, your income is going to increase. The likelihood that your income is going to increase. So your contributions can go up. And again, I said earlier, $25 a month, which is less than $1 a day. How many of you have energy drinks? How many vices do you have that you spend more than $25 a month on, right? Think about it for a second. Some of you love buying shoes. Some of you love buying shirts. Some of you love going to the movies. I'm not saying cut all that out. But what if I were to tell you, if you spent $500 on shoes a month, some of you, I'm not saying you all do, and said, all right, now $250. That $250, I'm going to take and I'm going to contribute it to something that's going to compound over time, right? Going to compound over time. And it's going to make me more money. So by the time I'm ready to retire, I don't have to worry about shoes. I can live comfortably based on my distributions, based on Social Security. If I have a pension, that's even better. But people lose sight of that because, again, what do we want? We want instant gratification, man. We want it now and no later than now.
Yeah, there's a lot of instant gratification that comes in for a lot of people, but there are also, I mean, and just to be fair, a lot of people are a lot closer to being able to make their bills than they like. And every bit that you set aside, the hard part is convincing yourself that setting aside a little bit of cash this way in one of these investment accounts, yeah, it's harder to get to. It's a little less liquid if there's an emergency, but it can still build up. And there are different financial vehicles people can use. So if you are in a much more precarious financial situation where $25 can make a huge difference if there's an emergency. And again, there's that statistic that a lot of people can't afford a $400 emergency. They just they don't have enough at the end of the month. So there are some of them, it's a lot harder to get money back out of. You will pay a really stiff penalty on it on your taxes. So if you're in a more difficult situation like that, maybe a Roth isn't the best idea. But there are ones where you can still do investments, but can also still cash it out. So it's not, it doesn't have to hurt you to do investments. And that, I think, is an important sell for a lot of people. Because if you're really worried about being able to make your bills, then doing investments but still being able to access them can matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think you bring up a good point, and I'm going to address that. And I think there's a question in the chat. So I'll address the question in the chat. Is it beneficial to adjust your contribution at bonus time? For me, for those of you that are, we used to get annual bonuses with the financial institution because I used to zero out my contributions during that time. I would not give any or reduce them, either zero amount or reduce them to a certain amount. So let's just say I was contributing 10%, I would reduce it to 4% because the amount obviously is greater during bonus time. So it'll depend on you. You can do deferred compensation depending on your employer. So if you're contributing 19% now and you want to, during bonus time, you want to reduce it to 6% because the amount might be the same depending on your bonus, then by all means, you can do that. And so that's an important thing to consider. It's a good question. And I'll come back to you, Anna, in a second. I think, Liam, to your point, you're right. So what we need to highlight here also is you need to determine your budget at the beginning of the month. What's needed for your necessities, food, utilities, car payments. Then you need to figure out, okay, how much of that money can I put in an emergency fund where I have ready accessibility to it, right? Meaning a savings account, I could pull it right away out, no problem. The third thing is then that final thing, although I hate it for me to be the third thing, is now I have this leftover money after setting up an emergency account. I've budgeted really well for the month. Now I have some extra money. Now I can say, you know what? I have an IRA established with this institution. I can go contribute to it. So you need to really do this step-by-step process. Spend some time really analyzing your month, knowing that you're, for a lot of us or a lot of people, like I said earlier, 64% of people barely have $400 a month at the end of the month, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Anna asks, I have an available balance on my IRA, and am I able to reinvest this balance? I would recommend yes. So if you have an available balance on your IRA, talk to your financial advisor, have them help you reinvest that, kind of walk you through what's best for you, because everybody's different. I think age also determines, but I know age also determines the amount of risk you take, whether it's conservative risk, whether it's moderate. For someone who's young, 25 in the 30s, they might want to be a little more aggressive with their investments. As we get older, a financial advisor might recommend that you're a little more conservative, depending on your retirement age, right? And a lot of financial advisors will create what they call an envision plan or a roadmap to what you need to retire effectively, right? It doesn't matter, and regardless of the balance, you can obviously reinvest that balance. If you have an IRA and you're looking to reinvest it in something else, definitely do that. If you take it out, you're going to be subject to the tax penalties depending on your age and your tax bracket. I think these are all important things to consider as you think about moving money from a retirement account. And here's the beautiful thing about this, Liam. A lot of folks don't know financial advisors sit in the branches for advice, right? Free advice. Now, I will add two things to that. Certain financial advisors sitting in the branch will only cater to a certain clientele, meaning if Liam and I had $250,000 and we want to invest, a financial advisor would probably want to see us. If a financial advisor is strict to their book of business and they only want to see clients with 250 or more, they're in a very affluent market, don't feel threatened by that, because there are online financial advisors that you can work with over the phone, regardless of the amount you have. And remember earlier I said that you can go in and open up an IRA on your own with any financial institution and be your own money manager. Take $10,000 if you have it, or $5,000 or $1,000. Do the research on the equities or stocks you want to buy, and go from there. You have the capability of really entrenching yourselves in the research. Google's a great website. Google's a great search engine. And there are a lot of folks like Susan Orman is one. If you don't follow Susan Orman, that's a great individual to go and kind of hear from her, get her advice. There's a lot of analysts out there that will give you guidance. You can go to cnbc.com, just search what you're looking for. If you go to LinkedIn, you'd be amazed at how many previous executives within a financial institution give guidance on how to be a day trader, if you will. So those resources are available. It's whether you want to put in the work to achieve the type of goals around retirement that you need to achieve, right? I came from immigrant parents. Parents came in 78. My father did not leave a penny for retirement, didn't know what retirement was. God, may he rest in peace. He worked the majority of his life until he is in his 70s, but he didn't leave a penny for any of his children. It's not his fault. He came to the States at the age of 55. We were young. We didn't know what retirement was. I didn't know what a retirement was until I got into corporate America, right? And my financial advisor sat with me and said, hey, JBS, let's talk about how you're going to start contributing using your 401k. Wow. So, which brings me to my last point. I'll turn over to Liam. If you're starting with a new employer, right, and they have a 401k, and you have not spoken to a financial advisor yet, you need to. You need to look into it. Call their HR number if it's not a bank. Let's talk. They have a lot of platforms, a lot of folks in customer service that will help you navigate 401ks, their contributions, and various other options for you. Don't wait until it's too late, right? Unfortunately, to Liam's point, there are a lot of folks that struggle at the end of the month. So let's change that landscape. Remember, financial literacy is one of the most difficult things for people in this country.
It really is. And it's difficult for both like personal reasons. A lot of people will struggle with it, struggle to find the time. They're busy as hell, work, kids, everything else. Like, how do you have the energy to sit down and think about these large abstract problems way the hell down the line? And of course, some of it's just made difficult structurally. Like, you know, the system here is just does not work well for a lot of people. And too many of us end up falling into a situation where we're dependent upon something like Social Security, and that's really all you're going to have. And it doesn't add up to a whole lot. So it will be very difficult to get by.
Absolutely.
I think the difficulty I have with, I guess, coming up with the best questions to drive along this one is that topics like this are really depressing to me, like on a personal level, because so much went wrong in my early life that I just did not plan well for this. So I have no retirement plan. I'll be moving into the classroom on a walker. Like I will struggle with this. So for me, there's a lot of questions that really aren't applicable to a lot of people. Like, what the hell can I do about it now? Like, how can I still bounce back from it? Because there are things you can do. And I'm sure I've been building up a little bit on a Roth IRA.
Good.
It's a real challenge, but I am trying. And the difficulty for me, Joe, is just looking at that and thinking, well, gosh, what should I have now at this age if they had managed to do a lot of this stuff in my 20s? You know, so for people in your 20s and 30s, you can save yourself a lot of pain and frustration of looking at, I'm middle-aged and I have a negative net worth. This sucks. So it's this is a really good topic to do. It's just
no, I hear you. And so hindsight's 2020, right? We can't dwell on, we can't be shackled by the things we can't. But I think it's an important message for the 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds. It's also an important message for guys in their 40s and women in their 40s and their 50s, because it's not too late. Right?
It's never too late. Yeah. I mean, you won't do as much, but it's never too late to do something and to really make a difference for yourself. And every little bit I can sock away now is going to make it a little easier to survive on that small fixed income, because I'll have a bit more to draw on it.
Absolutely.
So it's absolutely worth doing at any point.
Yeah, definitely. And so the other thing I think you mentioned that's really important to highlight for those of you listening, don't worry about what I should have had, because that will bury you. Focus on what the potential is, right? Focus on what the potential is. And so that's where you need to put all your energy in. Focus on, all right, now that I know I'm over what didn't happen, let's focus on what I can do. I can't control the past, I can control now. And I think that's what you mentioned, Liam, is okay, you're doing the best that you can now. The other thing, for those of you that have not, seek advice from a financial advisor. Hey, this is my situation. How can I maximize my contributions so that when I'm ready to retire, whatever that age is for you, because everyone's different, what will my financial situation look like? What will be the outlook of my finances? Because for you, Liam, and for many others, you just turned, we know what, I'm not going to say your age, but
I just turned 50.
You just turned 50. 50 is young, because next year, Liam, your financial situation can change. So let's just say, the first 20 years, let's just use that number, that you didn't contribute anything. But all of a sudden, a year later, your earnings have quadrupled, right? You're making 10 times as much. Now you can make up based on the maximums per year and make some good investments, whether it's real estate, whether it's equities, your own individual retirement account, your Roth. That can change in an instant. Life has a weird way of working itself out, So because I can sit here and say, I wish I would have contributed even more when I was in frontline management versus getting into mid to senior management. I'm not gonna shackle myself by that. But what this episode will do is hopefully light a light bulb for a lot of people, turn a light bulb on for a lot of people, and ignite a fire. Ignite a fire.
I totally thought. I immediately, when you started sounding like you were talking about fire, I was like, light a fire under their ass. Like, is he going to say it? Is he going to say it? Because
it should. You guys listening, if you're not contributing, it should ignite a fire. Don't wait. I mean, come on. Put a 1 if you drink coffee or energy drink at least once daily. Put a 1 in there. There's 6 of you, and this is where people don't join these really important educational lines. How many of you drink coffee or energy drink? Or how many of you go out to eat at least twice a week? Put a 1 if you eat twice a week outside, Uber Eats. If you're young, you probably go have a few drinks. You're clubbing. Come on. Don't be shy. Look, I was in my 20s. I get it. I was in my 30s at once. Thank you, Anna, for being honest. So if you're using good. I love it, Eucalyptus. For those of you that do Uber Eats, once a week. So, all right, good. You drink coffee. God knows how much that costs. And if you make it at home, it's inexpensive. But if you go buy coffee somewhere right now, it's about $9 a cup, right? And if you drink daily, $9 times 30 is what? I use the high number, but 9 times 30 is $270 a month, just coffee alone for those coffee drinkers, right?
Yep.
What would that 270 look like? And there's that calculator that I showed you, IRA contribution calculator, right? And that's not everybody though, and that's great, right? And so those that go to Coffee Bean and those that still go to Starbucks, they're spending $7 to $9 a cup. Now that's reality. And for those of you that drink energy drinks, it's at least $2 to $3 a day, right? Those of you that like to go eat out or use Uber Eats, today with Uber Eats, God knows how much it costs to get food delivered. My daughter is volunteering right now, doing missionary work, and she went out to eat with a friend because she didn't take food with her that day. She goes, "Dad, I spent $50 for 2 of us." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "We went to a sandwich place. When she told me the total, it was $50. Like, that is freaking outrageous. $50 for 2 people, not even a restaurant, just a deli. Like, that to me is mind blowing that we're willing to spend $50.
Food joints are really expensive now. I mean, everything's ridiculously expensive. So that's one more reason it gets even harder for people to imagine how they can save things up. And then you fall into this interesting cycle where, it's going to make so little difference at this point. The value of the money's collapsing. The cost of living keeps going up. So screw it. I might as well just enjoy where I am. And
don't fall into that trap.
People are falling into that trap where I don't know, live for the day. But when you do that, it's always going to come around and bite you in the butt later, because you're going to get to a point where you can't keep up in the same way. Maybe something goes wrong, you lose a particular job or something. It is really still good to plan for the future, even when it's difficult. And we're talking about much larger numbers. So, and I know that can be kind of intimidating. A lot of us are not in a position where we could save $400 or $500 a month. There's just no way in hell I could do it. But every little bit that you can does.
What I want to hear.
If it's only like, $10, $25, $30, every little bit that you put into it, because it always can accrue. And if you're, again, that nervous about it, there are financial vehicles that make the money still accessible. So you're not trapped. And if you're that nervous about it too, especially as we get older, we can pick those more conservative investments, so you're less likely to lose something. Because I know a lot of people too, and this even happened to my mother. When a lot of that stuff went south in 07 and 08,
the Great Recession, she
lost her shirt on a lot of stuff. And it's been difficult to bounce back from that, and a lot of people never have.
Right.
So
it's a good call out.
You really want to find, this is where having a good financial advisor really helps. We can do a lot of things on our own, but don't trust that you can just download a Robinhood app and suddenly make yourself a millionaire. And most people can't put in the time of, most people won't have the skill to do that well. So finding somebody that can really help you to do these things and make a sensible decision. What can you afford to risk? What can you afford to lose? And I think that's important to keep in mind for any investment. If the money is going into an investment, you have to be able to afford to lose it as well as gain from it, because there's always those risks. So if you can't, you want to find the most conservative things you can. And really, we're talking, and I want to get back to the 401k one, because that, while that doesn't fit me, but it does fit a lot of people.
It does.
It's important to do. But there are other things to do as well, like simple like municipal bonds, for example. They're super reliable. It's not going to go away. Cities do not declare bankruptcy very often. So it's a good, sensible investment if you don't want the risk, but the return is also fairly low.
Right.
So at every point, there always is something you can turn to. But let's get back to our hypothetical person in their 20s or 30s. They've got a job. The job offers a 401k. We've encouraged them so far to increase their contributions as much as they can. Look at the budget, plan what they need for emergencies, plan what they need for bills, and then push up and don't do the minimum. Beyond not doing the minimum, what else can you really do with your 401k that can maximize your return, get the most out of this?
Yeah. So I want to, TikTok user, right. We talked about this a moment ago. Your age will determine the amount of aggressiveness you have with your investment. So again, everybody's age will vary. And there are some folks in their 50s and 60s want some aggressive investments. So, but again, you have to, it has to be dependent upon your situation. So I think your question was, what can people do in addition to their 401k contribution? Like, how can they maximize it?
Well, okay. So we've got how you can maximize already, because if you've set aside your emergency fund, you've managed your bills, you've worked out a good budget that counts for both. And most people, when they're budgeting, don't plan an emergency account. You should do that as well.
Absolutely.
But setting that aside, then what else out of my paycheck can I afford to make a contribution so your contribution level can go up?
Love it.
Once you've done that, though, what else are we doing with our 401k? Do we just sit there and let the magic of the markets do it? Or
no.
That's
a good call out. So one of the things you can do with your 401k, and tying it back to what we said earlier, the beautiful thing about a 401k, you can do a number of options. The first is you can have it auto rebalance depending on your portfolio every quarter. So it will auto rebalance your distribution amounts. So that's one thing you can look into. The second thing you can look into.
What does that mean?
Meaning
so
that
for those of us who didn't spend 30 years in the banking industry, auto rebalance your what?
So let's just say you have 5 different investments. And we're just going to use hypothetical. We're just going to use these names. This is not exact. Let's just say we've invested in 5 different stocks, and the 5 different stocks, right? We'll say 4 different stocks, and each stock has a 25%. We have a 35% investment. We have 25, right? That's 60. And then we have 20 in these last 2, right? We'll say this is Apple. This is Facebook. This is Tesla, and this is Amazon, right? We'll just say that. Now, on auto rebalance, assuming you keep these same ones, we'll say, all right, now that I did 35, 20, and 20, my auto rebalance is going to shift the amount of contributions, investments to the different ones. Now we're going to go backwards, 35, 25, 20. So auto rebalance allows you to shift the amount of money that goes through those particular investments. That's what an auto rebalance does, right? So again, you'll take a certain percentage. Let's just say, we'll use another example. Now you got 10 investments in your 401k, right? 9 of those investments, right, have 8 of those investments have 10% each. The last one has 15, and the second to last has 15% going to it, and the last one has 5. You can rebalance the percentages that contribute to those investments, right? Rebalance your contribution amount. Rebalance your percentages that go to the different investments. And it'll do it automatically for you based on trends, based on age, based on your contributions, based on historical data. The second thing you can do with that money that's going to your 401k, we talked about it, is visit with a financial advisor. I have a great friend who is ultimately was going to try to join us at some point, but for compliance reasons, we're going to get another financial advisor in here as well. You can meet with a financial advisor. I met with mine, and he says, Jamal, here's what you can do. Let's take a look at your 401k. based on historical data, based on my research, this is the FA speaking to me, I would recommend that you take whatever you're contributing and split the percentages this way so you can maximize your earnings, right? We'll say, equities, I would put about 50% of your contributions in these equities because research shows their earnings are going to be over what was estimated. They are growing organically, right? They are trimming excess expenses so that their revenue is higher, right? These are things that a financial advisor might look at and might have insight on that you may not be willing to do the research on, right? And so keep that in mind as you think about, well, now I'm putting my money in, how do I maximize it? Those are some ways to do that, right? Those are some ways. And so I would highly recommend, again, the financial advisor to me. I've had multiple in my life. You want to pick a good one, someone who's willing to listen, ask questions, and do what's best for you, not what's best for them, right? And make sure they're helping you along the way. And so that's what I would recommend in terms of your 401k contribution and how to maximize the earnings there. Remember, you don't have to contribute, a ton of money at the beginning because depending on your financial situation, if you can maximize depending on your state and what the maximum contribution is, great. The other thing, Liam, I think you mentioned that I think is important for people to understand. You talked about, I've got to withdraw from my 401k because I have financial expenses. Well, no, you don't. Some companies will allow you, yes, TikTok user, make sure you understand the fees. And some financial advisors will give you that advice at no cost to you unless you start investing with them. The other thing is some 401ks will allow you to borrow against them without paying the tax penalty, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So let's just say you had $300,000 in your 401k and your total invested, which means that it's gone over a certain period of time and you can withdraw it, is $100,000. So you can borrow against that 401k of the $100,000, and you'd pay a certain percentage. You'd pay yourself back essentially in a portion to the bank, but there's no tax consequences because it's not a full distribution.
Right. No, that's a neat option. I assume you do have to have a significant amount already in there to do it, but that's a really neat option there to.
I mean, it could be. It doesn't have to be significant, because I don't know, what when you say that, what that means. But it could be if you had 20,000 in there and you want to borrow a portion and some of it's fully vested, by all means. The beautiful thing, there's two types of ways to borrow against the 401k. Again, talk to your company about this. You can borrow for expenses. You can also borrow money for primary residence. Now, here's the difference. If you just borrowed, let's just say for expenses and you're running short on cash and you need to borrow the money, the term on those to pay that back is much shorter. Typically, it's about 5 years. Now, if you borrow to purchase a primary residence, the term on that is much longer, right? The term on that is much longer. It's typically anywhere from 180 to 360 months, right? And so primary residence payback term is much longer, right? Much longer. Payback to just borrow for expenses, about 5 years. Again, every company is different. And so you want to be cognizant of that and do your research.
You
got it.
There's a question I have that kind of fits here, maybe a point or two on it, because we've just been talking about things that you can do with your 401k, like investment choices that you can make along the way. I'd like to suggest for a future week that you're doing, if you could talk about like ESGs, the environmental, social governance type investments, because ethical investing is an increasing concern for a lot of people, especially a lot of younger people who have genuinely good social politics and don't want to be like, I don't know, you listed off like several evil corporations for our stock examples earlier. Maybe people don't want to
give saw the look on your face
more money, Maybe people don't want to support the fossil fuel industry. Maybe people don't want to support the defense industries.
Yeah.
And I know from conversations I've had with my advisor a little bit about the ETFs, like the exchange traded funds or whatever, and you can from there create like a basket of things that are maybe less toxic, that you don't have to feel like you're somehow making
the world bad about investing into them. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, because you might do pretty well by investing in, I don't know, ExxonMobil or something, but you're probably going to be mad about it.
So I think that's a great topic for our financial advisor. You'll find more value in a licensed, certified financial planner having this discussion about EFTs and other ways. So okay. I have a couple other sources that I can broach to come talk to us. I think an independent financial advisor won't have the compliance issues and approval issues that someone working for a company does.
I think especially for a lot of people in our audience, if we can find somebody who's willing to come on and talk specifically about ethical investing, because another issue that does come up, and this certainly affects people in my circles, there's a lot of resistance to investment at all. I actually had a bestie who inherited a significant amount of money, and she absolutely hated the idea of making any investment at all with it, right? Because any money that somehow goes on to Wall Street, then, it seems like she's contributing to the problem or whatever. But at the same time, like, okay, you've got a chunk of cash here, it's just going to go away. But if you put some of it in and into some kind of investment that you can be okay with, absolutely, it'll help you to retire. And it's really hard to find a balance there, because I very much understand her perspective and where she's coming from there, but I don't want us all to shoot ourselves in the foot too. So there's got to be some kind of middle ground on this.
Yep, absolutely. And the other thing, someone said, typically companies will have 10 to 15 options they offer. Not sure what you mean by that, but here's the beautiful thing about your 401k that you can do. If you took money from your 401k and rolled it into a traditional IRA, then the options open up tremendously. How many of them allow that? I think what they might have been meaning there is something similar to what I ran into back in the 90s, with the only place that ever offered me one was I had 3 options, and they managed it entirely. It was like low risk, medium risk, high risk. That was all my choices. And then they enrolled them in whatever they wanted to do. Yeah. So a lot of companies will allow you to take what's vested as a rollover. You can roll. There are options when you go to do a distribution on your 401k. It'll tell you whether you want a cash withdrawal or a rollover. You roll it into an IRA, and then now you open up more doors if your company restricts you on what you can invest in. And
that's if someone chooses to take distributions from it?
You could, if you took a distribution from a 401k, invested it into an IRA. If you took from the IRA, you still have to pay the tax implications, right? Because
you're not like 401ks don't work like dividends. You're not normally getting distributions out of them. It's normally just staying there, right?
You can get dividends from 401k. Absolutely. It's a good point.
Interesting.
So the dividends that get paid
back, I'm here assuming that they work a lot more like IRAs, and the money just stays there. The money can consciously choose to do something with it.
So Liam's asking whether you can take dividends from a 401k. Yes, you can have the dividends distributed to you quarterly or annually, or you can have it reinvested for you.
Or roll it into something else. That's interesting.
Absolutely. Now, the money I was
news to me.
The money I was talking about, let's say because someone said, hey, I'm limited in the number of options I have within the 401k. No problem. Mm-hmm. Let's say you have $100,000 that you could draw. You can roll over that $100,000 into a traditional IRA and then start investing on a much wider range, leveraging a financial advisor to give you that guidance.
Interesting. And there aren't penalties on pulling from the 401k to do an IRA instead?
As long as you do a rollover, you're good. As long as you do a rollover, you're not taking the money cash in hand.
Right. Okay.
No cash in hand. Only when you take cash in hand. And I think the rollover period is 180 months if you decide. Let me just double check that real quick. Because once you take a distribution, whether it's from an IRA or a 401k, it is 180 days for you to recontribute without penalty. We'll look at that up real quick. Yeah. What other questions did you have, Liam, that really stick out to you? And for those of you in the chat, if you want to ask questions, feel free to do so.
Yeah, and for anybody who's just watching this on the Mondays on YouTube or hearing the audio, this first time that JBS is live streaming while we're recording, which is neat because we do get some more feedback this way. That's one of the advantages of doing these. I originally considered maybe streaming these things live, out to everything while we were doing it, but Absolutely. I figured it would get distracting too. But it's a fine balance. We're seeing how it can work because getting some questions in can definitely help.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna give sure.
Go ahead.
I think my biggest questions on this, I think we kind of have. I have to admit, slightly murky on exactly how 401ks work because you've mentioned a whole lot of things people can do with them that I knew nothing about. But again, I have very little exposure to them. So,
no, it's all good. Look, I'm glad we're having this discussion because you're not the only one in that boat, right? I think we need to keep that in mind. There's a lot of folks out there that are probably in the same boat as you, probably even completely have not even thought about investing in a retirement account, right? And for those of you that are interested, there are so many different websites that you can go to simply just to gather information. I'm going to give you you can go to Fidelity, you can go to Wells Fargo, B of A. Everything you need is at the tip of your finger, at the tip of your fingers, right? You can just Google it, pull it up. You want to know how much penalty you'll have on a IRA contribution. And we're going to do that exercise here in a moment. I'm going to show you all how to do it. What's up, Palestinian engineer? So I'm going to pull up the calculator because I toyed with this quite a bit, when I was buying my home. And it gave me some perspective. So I'm going to ask you guys some numbers, for some numbers in the chat. And I want you to give me some numbers, and I'm going to tell you what you will end up paying in taxes, what potentially you can pay depending on our tax here. And I'm not going to do minimum distribution. So let me find that early withdrawal cost calculator. All right. So let me just pull this out here so I can see Liam. All right. And I'm going to pull this. I want you guys to give me some numbers here. All right. So Liam, what I did for those in the chat, I basically pulled out early withdrawal from your qualified retirement plan. All right. So someone give me a dollar amount. How much, if you had to today, and you give me a dollar amount, what would you say? 50,000, 20,000, 30,000? Give me a dollar amount. Any amount. Need your help. This is where y'all participate. And so this 50,000. All right. So Liam, for our audience on the podcast, what we're doing here is I'm doing an early withdrawal penalty from a 401k on your qualified retirement account. Let's just say the federal tax for us is, we're going to say 22%. We're going to say state is 4%, right? Now, did you turn 55 or older? Nope. I'm still young. How many years do I still have to retire? I'm going to say I'm 52. Let's just say 15 years. What annual return would you expect between now and retirement? So this is asking me, what percentage would I expect on my investments to earn before I retire, right? Is it 1%, 2%? I'm going to say 7%, right? This is what it's going to cost me to withdraw 50,000 today, right? All right. So because I'm not 59 and a half, right? The early withdrawal penalty is 10%, which in this case from 50,000 is $5,000, right, Liam? So $5,000. Since my federal tax withheld is about 22%, 22% of 10,000 of 50,000 is 10,000. My federal tax, the state tax is 4%, which is 2,000. Now, there's the other part about the federal tax. Not only do they charge you federal tax withholding, they also charge you federal tax you will owe, which is 2,000. So they ask for that up front before you start filing. So you will pay total tax and penalties from a $50,000 withdrawal. Can anyone I did the math. I did the numbers. Can anyone do the math? What do you think you'll get as a net? So 5,000, 10,000, 2,500, and 2,000. You end up paying about $19,500 up front, and your net amount is $30,500. Right? $30,500. Now, here's the other part that you all need to. So if you had kept that money for another 15 years, let's just say you didn't take a distribution, right? Let's just say you didn't take a distribution, you borrowed against it versus an early withdrawal. Do you know, can anyone take a guess for 15 years what that 50,000 would look like? How much? Take a wild guess. So you kept the 50,000, you didn't do a withdrawal, nothing from it.
Assuming what rate of return were you putting in there?
7%.
That seems high. Okay.
We used a high number. Let's just see. We can go back and recalculate under a low number. Anyone guess how much would be there and what that 50,000 would look like by the time you retire? $137,000, $952. That's compounding. That's assuming a 7% return.
So then, now, even assuming a decent enough interest rate, taking a loan on it would actually still make more sense.
Yeah. Leon, and everyone listening, let's reduce it to 5%, right? Let's just say 5%. We know the economy is going to change. I mean, 15 years is a long time. Let's recalculate that. Cost is going to be the same. If you did 5%, what you would have at the end of the 15 years is $103,000, roughly $104,000, right? Versus having to pay the $19,000. Right, TikTok user, only the earnings are the interest you pay yourself. Correct, right? And so good call out. And so you have a couple of options, right? You can borrow against it or complete early withdrawal. And we said that we were not of age to avoid the early penalty withdrawal, right? So we're going to recalculate it now, Liam. And I'm going to say that we're at the age where we're not going to pay the 10% early withdrawal penalty, right? Did you turn 55 or older? Yes. We're going to say, let's just say 4%. Again, we'll use a smaller number. Now, here's the other thing. So if you wanted to increase your federal tax withheld during the withdrawal, you have the option to do that. Consult your CPA in order to determine what's the best federal income tax rate that you should pay on a distribution, and state, because it will be dependent upon your tax bracket. Because at the end of the day, this is considered extra income at the end of the year, and you might get taxed more on it. So be cognizant of that. All right. Now I'm over the age limit where I don't pay the 10% penalty. Instead of paying the 10%, which is $5,000, now my total that I pay is $14,500 up front, and I receive about $35,500. Had I kept that money in there and it was a 4% return, I would earn that 50,000 would become 90,000 roughly and $50, right? And you all could do this on your own. Again, this is actually provided by Wells Fargo. This early withdrawal penalty calculator is provided by Wells Fargo. A lot of banks have this. It just happened to be the first one I pulled up. Make sense? Give me a one if you guys
are endorsing Wells Fargo. They have plenty of problems, but there's tons of free tools out there, tons of free calculators and whatnot you can do for things. So might as well use the tools that are available.
Absolutely. Give me a one if that made sense to you in the chat. Let me know if that was clear. And if you have questions in the chat as we're recording this podcast, please let us know. We typically do a dad segment too during this, a dad joke segment.
If you want to wind down with that, I think we're already at the hour.
Yeah.
And I think we've laid down a handful of threads that we can pick up on other ones too. Like I said, I definitely want to have a segment on ethical investment, and
absolutely
with an advisor too. We can also try and do a deeper dive into just what you can do with Roths or regular IRAs too, because you do have a lot more control over those than you do with a lot of 401ks. There are more options than I knew of. But there are still more constraints on them because they do come from a particular company. They may have their particular financial managers they want to use for some parts of it. So you're basically trying to get around that. But if you're doing an investment account on your own, you do have a lot more choices and options as to where you're going to put your money in order to maximize your return for retirement. So,
totally. And hence the research, right? You gotta really dive in and read, determine what's the best option for you. So our dad joke segment. So why did the egg take Friday off? Because it was Friday.
That one's unusually bad.
Absolutely, TikTok user. Your employer may allow you to take a rollover while working into an IRA. Yeah, that's possible. You just always consult your employer. So hopefully you all enjoyed that joke. So Liam, we just concluded our 5th episode. So for those of you listening, if you don't know, we are on YouTube visual. So go check us out, Office Hours with J&L. We're on Podbean. We're on iHeart. We're on Amazon, Apple, and Spotify for audio. So this is our 5th. Our first one was just getting to know Liam and myself. Our second was on capitalism. Our third was on resume writing and cover letters. Our fourth was on Palestine, social structure, the conquest of Napoleon to Egypt. And then we talked about the revolts. We landed on that of 1834 to 1839. And today we gave you a high-level overview of 401ks, the importance of contributing traditional IRAs versus Roth IRAs. There will be more episodes on all the topics we just discussed. We can't do those topics justice in just one episode.
Oh, yeah.
We'll bring guests on in the future, and more of what you just heard will be expounded upon so that you all can walk away feeling really good about the topics we discussed.
Yeah, the first two that I did are definitely first parts of many we can come back to. So we laid down some of the foundations for capitalism. What is it? Where does it come from? And we have a lot to go in order to describe how does liberal capitalism work? How does that transition into neoliberalism? You know, what is all this stuff? Because again, there's a ton of weird misinformation on that. You know, tons of people out there, well, that's not capitalism, that's corporatism. That it makes no sense at all. They're nonsensical buzzwords people throw around. So we want to talk about some of those and other issues, but I like mixing things up. I don't like going back and talking about the same thing every week. So I was asking, and there's a number of interesting suggestions on the Discord. And for anybody who enjoys the different projects that JBS does, that I do, that we're doing together, whatever, there's a Discord community for that. To again mix it up a little bit, because we talked about one piece of like what we can call intellectual history, you know, a history of capitalism as a system. We did one on our early modern period, 18th and 19th century. Not quite early modern, but like, you know, our modern period. So we looked at like 18th century Palestine. You want to do a topic in the ancient world? Because the last suggestion I saw was like, you know, about you know, the origins of Christianity and the you know, the development of the ideas. We could like take a trip back 2,000 years and chat about things.
Yeah, look, I think anything that for those of you that don't know, we have a Discord that we get suggestions on. So I think it'll be great to build a foundation on each of these topics and elaborate more in upcoming episodes. I'm open to that. I think what's also going to be great. I know you got folks teed up to come join us from our legal system around the ICC. I've got folks in the entrepreneurial space. I've got folks in the investment space. I've got folks. I've already tapped some of the wrestling coaches. A lot of folks are just waiting for our invite, and so we are going to have just an amazing episode. Is there a way for folks to subscribe, Liam? OG, I'll get to your question in a moment, bud. Is there a way for folks to subscribe to us? I know on YouTube there's a subscription button just to make sure.
And any of them, if you're just hitting subscribe on wherever you're actually seeing this, you're going to get notified of future episodes. So yeah, absolutely. All of them have that option.
Awesome. And then
I was thinking about for me, out of the discussions there, the things that are most interesting, because again, I want to lay down some threads in very different areas. I do courses on histories of religions, so we can talk about a lot of them and their origins, you know, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Islam, Hinduism, whatever. But maybe we can do one of those. Might be fun. And then another one was on questions of like political identity, you know, nationalism, that sort of thing. That might be interesting there. And then we can start going back to and like, you know, picking things back up, you know, like let's do capitalism part 2. But I want to mix things up a little bit topic wise.
Yeah. You got it. And then next time I'll wear like a hat or something and just full on beard, just as a costume, just to shake it up a little bit. We're definitely going to. This is definitely a great experience for both of us. At least for me, I'm enjoying the experience so far, and we appreciate all the support, especially those that are editing, like Danny, our mods that are on the various Discords. And then Liam and I also, well, I host a book club, and Liam joins every Tuesday and Thursday. So if you're not on TikTok live with us, you can look me up at JBS or JNS7171. I host a book club every Tuesday, Thursday at 7:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Liam hosts office hours every Friday from 3 to 9. He streams it. So he streams it on YouTube and everything. So he's got his audience. So you can join us there. And there is one more question. Is it a good idea to combine your 401k that you own? Can you provide me clarity on that, OG? So when you say that you own and combine it into what? Like combine two 401ks? Do you have it in two different institutions? And so let me know if that's the question you're asking. It's been amazing, Liam. Again, man, we're already at the end of June. Can you believe it, dude?
Yeah, I have a lot more things I want to do this summer that I'm getting done. So yeah, I'm definitely where the time is flying away from me.
Oh my God. I feel like, you know, I look at my gray hairs. If you all don't see, I got a bunch of gray hair coming, and I haven't cut my hair in almost a month. My goal is to grow my hair as much as I can, because my wife says you need to grow it to show your salt and pepper. I'm like, all right, I have no problem doing that. Yes, you can consult your CPA. That will be a 401k rollover. You can also roll your 401k into an IRA account, but I would consult not your CPA, but your financial advisor. So if you've got two different 401ks, what I did from my first 401k that I had with one institution, when I got to the second, I just rolled it over into an IRA. But if you want to combine them, I would ask if the financial institution allows that. Your financial advisor can tell you. Typically, you put it into a retirement account, an IRA. So check with your institution, OG. That might be helpful. And so,
thinking of summers, gosh. So who wants to come and help me stain my house?
Anyway, Liam's asking for support to stain his house.
That's one of the things I want to be working on already.
You know what I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do this week? So I know how to do really a good job of changing the electrical outlets in the house. I also know how to change toilets now too.
Oh, so
I'm going to go. I'm going to go buy a brand new toilet for the downstairs bathroom and change it myself. My kids have been on me for that. And then tonight I'm excited because I get to work out and teach tonight, so that's pretty cool. And so I'm going to stick around here because we know we have to stop and then make sure it's uploaded. Liam, I'm so appreciative of you, man, and everything that you have engaged us in and everything that you do. Thanks for today's episode. It was really, really awesome. Guys, check us out. Don't be afraid of us. I don't bite. He does, though, because he's around a lot of cats all the time, and he tends to bite quite a bit. And he's got this weird voice that he does. So later tonight when we're doing a book club, maybe he invites the voice in.
Tuesday.
So I guess this so Anna knows. Anna heard Liam and myself last week on our book club. So join us. Don't freak out.
Right. So we'll wind this one down. And if we do end up doing the early church next time, wear your Sunday best. That might be fun.
Yeah. I'll put. I have not worn a tie in quite a while. I've done it for auditions for previously, but I have not worn a tie. So I'll get my best Sunday best on. Typically, what I like to do is a nice crew neck sweater with a tie underneath and a dress shirt. Nice. So I'll do that, but it's too hot for that now. So if I can muster up the energy to put a jacket on, I might do that. Now, here's the other thing that I have my dress blues from the Marine Corps, and I don't know if they still fit me. One year I tried them on when I lost a lot of weight, and they fit really well. And I still have my white cover. I have it wrapped in a plastic bag, so that it doesn't get really cool. Off-white looking. So maybe I can wear my dress blues someday. Who knows? I just got to adjust the ranking on there.
That would be interesting. Yeah.